Hi, Bunny. It's so lovely to meet you face to face finally. I know people are hearing our conversation, but I got introduced to you from our sweet dear friend Megan. And she was actually just coming out to visit you in Puerto Vallarta for her 40th birthday. So I think like the week before she was going out, she's like, "You have to meet my most amazing friend Bunny," and I think you guys would hit it off. And I know we had our time scheduled for back in, was it December or January? No, January, I think a few weeks ago. And then just some stuff came up. So I'm so glad that we can finally connect. And she was right when she shared your story with me and I got to read about you. I'm in awe because for me, I've always wanted to go live international and I just never really made it happen. So just to hear someone that actually lived in the States, picked up and moved to another country, I just think is really courageous and bold. So I just would love to dive deep and share your story. So I know, so did you grow up in New York?
I grew up in Windsor, Ontario. So I'm
Oh,
Canadian.
wow. Wow, that's awesome. And then how did you make your way into the States?
I I did my undergraduate degree in Canada in art history and fine art. And then after I finished that degree, I decided I wanted to go to fashion school in New York City.
Awesome. What was that like? What was that like what had you get into fashion, or were you always into fashion or?
Um, so I was studying art history and there was a whole like thing that we learned about that was like window display as art.
Okay.
So we started talking about like Andy Warhol would do window display with like Salvador Dali, and so this was all woven into the art history lessons. And I was like, and I grew up watching. It was called fashion television.
Uh-huh.
It was this channel that was on. It was this channel that was on TV called Fashion TV, fashion television, and the host, she would go to all the runway shows, and she was from Toronto, and she would go to all the runway shows, and I used to sit and watch these runway shows, and I was so fascinated by the industry. And I was always an artist, and I was so enamored with like the level of artistry
Mm-hmm.
in the fashion industry and these runway shows, and like the whole glamour component of it was very seductive. And
Yeah.
and so I grew up watching this, and I remember thinking like, how do I become part of this world? Like, how do I get in here? And so then when we started learning about art as, like art and window display and fashion, and also it was like a total retail rat growing up. Like I
Okay.
worked at the mall, and I worked at Club Monaco, and I worked at American Eagle, and I was always like flipping through the visual merchandising books. Like
Mm-hmm.
the visual merchandising team would come from the corporate office, and they would do the windows, and they would do the mannequins. And this was, by the way, like in Windsor, Ontario, this tiny little city. And but I wanted to work at, like the Club Monaco was like the Prada of Windsor, Ontario.
Okay.
So, but anyways, I would always like flip.
Is that a store?
Oh,
I've
I don't.
actually never heard of
Does it
it.
even exist anymore? Oh yeah, Club
Okay.
Monaco does exist, but maybe
Okay.
not in California.
Okay. Well, I'm actually from the East Coast originally, so but I'm not privy to that. But like you, like I've always been enamored with like I don't know the fashion industry. It feels like this like secret club or the fashion industry. And I remember I think what is that show that Tyra Banks does? I remember was it the Fashion Runway?
those
show.
models. What are
Yeah, the
something
model,
the next top
show.
model
Yes,
or
yes,
something?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember I had moved out to California. I was probably in my 20s, and I loved it because they would show. I think it was like on a weekend, and I just binge watched like the series, and I just love the makeup and all the things that they do and all the cool things that they could wear, and it was just like such an expression. And so I remember going to my mom and being like, "Mom, do you think I could be a runway model?" And she was like, "Well, that's interesting," because I just really wanted my face. Like I don't really do makeup. I'm very like athletic, but I love the thought of being that. But I'm not like Megan. She loves like her clothes to be an expression of her,
Uh-huh.
and she just loves being like she always loves clothes, and I'm like, oh, I'll just wear sweatpants and my workout clothes. That's me, but I love the idea of it. So when I watched that show, I was like, oh, the makeup that they could do is, and my mom's like, well, if you really want to, but I'm also like 5'2", so it's probably not in in my cards. But I've always been enamored by that. So you were going to school for art history,
Mm-hmm.
and then you was so and when you watched that show, was that before like all that, or was it like the same time, or
Yeah,
like it
but
just
like
progressed?
before and during,
Yeah.
I would say. Yeah.
And then you ended up moving into New York City, the
Yeah.
mecca of fashion.
I begged my parents that like, could I please go? Could I please go? And there were many temper tantrums and crying fits because they were like, first of all, it's so expensive, and second of all, it's New York
New
City.
York
Like
City.
you're just gonna move there by yourself. And I was like, yeah, I'm going.
And you were from a small town in Canada?
Well, just it's a decent sized city, but
Okay. Okay.
nothing like New York.
New York
Nothing like New
City.
York.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. So how old were you at that time?
I was 23 when I moved there.
Wow. So did you do the 4 years? So was it 4 years at this college and then
It was a
go to FIT?
I did 4-year university degree, and then I went and did a 2-year,
Okay.
what do they call it? Like I don't even know what they call it, but
Okay.
it was like a 2-year program.
Okay. And what was that for? Like, so what did you go to FIT for?
That was for visual merchandising and window
Okay.
display.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So that was
Hmm.
kind of what got you when you were in your undergrad. You were like
Hmm.
into that. That's awesome. That's very cool. Because I actually now I work in like the home industry, and that's actually my favorite part is we get to create all the displays. But I'm doing like kitchen or bath. I work in the bath and hardware section, so we create all like the beautiful vignettes and stuff like that with product. But that's display is like my favorite part of my job too. So that's fun. It's like the creative part, you know.
Yeah.
So, you said you were creative your whole life. What are some things that were your inspiration in like being creative?
I always grew up coloring.
Oh, I love that.
I just remember my mom always had crayons, and white paper. Just
Okay.
like white, fresh, blank paper and crayons or
Uh-huh.
markers. We always had a major, a stocked craft cupboard at all times with scissors and glue and sparkles and all the things to make stuff.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. So do you like is drawing too, or just coloring and drawing?
I grew up drawing and coloring and painting and lots of like cutting out and collaging, and then I paint now. Now I also paint, and then I have my jewelry is
Yeah, you're full on inspiration. Well, I definitely want to move into that. So just going back to New York, you went to school for displays and then you did the 2 year schooling there. And then how was it like living in New York City at that time and going to school? How was that experience for you?
it was like one of the greatest experiences of my life. It was just like in the movies. Like
Yeah.
I had this apartment on 23rd Street, and it was in this old building that the elevator opened right up into the apartment.
Oh, wow.
And my view was like of the Empire State Building. And I remember my boyfriend at the time, he moved me there, and we looked out the window and I was like, is that the Empire State Building?
Is this for real?
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so you're 23 at this time. Yeah. And then you're living in New York City by yourself. Did you have a roommate or anything?
Yeah, there was the apartment had 3 other bedrooms. So it was so there were 3 roommates.
Okay, cool. And did they all go to FIT too? Because I know, like, is it school housing that you get?
It wasn't. No, it was just an independent apartment. So yeah, so one of the guys went to FIT and the other 2 didn't. But one of the girls became a very good friend. Okay.
Awesome. Yeah. I love that. So you're living there for 2 years, and then you go through your program and you graduate through this program?
Yeah.
And then you go into the fashion industry.
So I had secured a job at Bloomingdale's.
Okay.
Which was just like, I mean, the whole thing is just so crazy to think back on it. Like, I have no idea what I was doing, but I was very determined to stay there. Like, I was very determined.
And to stay in New York?
Yes.
Yeah, you just do whatever you have to do to make it work, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And as a Canadian, you have to have a work visa. Right. So I needed to find a job that would sponsor me. And so I was offered a job in the visual department at Bloomingdale's in menswear.
I think that's so fascinating too, because I never understand, like, so when you came to school, you had the visa for work or school visa, correct?
Right.
And then you have to then go through the process of getting a work visa. And I'm sure that's not really that easy to do.
It wasn't. It was easier. I'm sure it was easier then than it is now. But
right.
Like I said, I was just determined. I was like, this is happening.
I love that. And so what was that like? I love that mindset too, because it wasn't really like you were going to just make it happen, right? And then it kind of just happened that way.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I set the intention, and I set the intention and was very determined, and it flowed and worked out.
Right.
You know, the doors just kept opening. So
you stayed at Bloomingdale's, and then I'm sorry, what were you doing there too?
I was doing window display and visual merchandising for menswear. Yeah.
I love that. It was like everything that you wanted, you made happen. I love that. And did you love it? Or was it what you thought it?
I loved it.
Was it what you thought it was going to be?
It was, you know what, looking back now, I didn't understand enough of the business component. I was decently good at what I was doing, but again, like, I was just starting. It was my first job in the industry, and I learned so much, and it was, you know what, it was an incredible learning experience working in a department store, because I got to work with hundreds of brands. Right. And it was fascinating to see how, I mean, it was like a master's course in retail and business and merchandising and like being on walkthroughs with like the CEO and the vice presidents of these gigantic companies and listening to their feedback and literally learning fashion business from the best people in the industry, saying like, no, you need to move that here because of this, and this isn't selling, so why don't we move it over here? And I was like jaw dropped for most of it. I couldn't.
And you're like, what, like 26 by this, or 25, 26 at this point?
So it's 23, 24. So I started when I was 25, and I worked there for 4 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
4 years? 4 years. 4 or 5 years. Yeah.
That's awesome. So it kind of too, like I always feel like in school you don't really get the tools that you need. And again, I don't know, like you don't really get that hands-on tools that you get with that. So that's really amazing. Like having that. Do you think that was like what set the stage for you to go and do like what you're doing now? And I
Oh,
know we haven't really even talked about that, but like I'll just introduce it, but I want to go back to that is Bunny has her own jewelry line and you create this amazing jewelry with are they specific beads or are they just, it's like beaded jewelry?
yeah. I would say glass
Oh, cool.
beads, glass beads.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, and you've like literally have created a whole brand and whole like entity around your jewelry now, and you're like like yeah, you're like your own line now, right? So it's with that going back, do you think that really set the stage for you to be able to create what you're doing now?
Yeah. I got to work with so many different kinds of product, and I was in menswear for most of it, but I was just like, and I was surrounded by luxury, and
Yeah.
they showed me how to present it. And I went on to work for a company called Calypso, which is
Mm-hmm.
now no longer around, or maybe they're having a comeback. I'm not sure, but I went on to work for this company called Calypso St. Bart's, and I was working there for 4 years doing the same thing. I became a
Merchandise
director there, or like a senior visual person
right.
at that company, and really there is where I got to understand all of it was they call it a vertical company. So like every branch of the company is in one building, and I was exposed to a lot of jewelry. Let's just say that I was exposed
Okay.
to a lot of really beautiful jewelry and how to display it. And I was obsessed with how was it made, and I don't know, like little seeds were, I guess, we're getting planted that whole time.
I love that. So in Calypso it was like a high-end resort wear clothing and jewelry company?
Yeah,
Okay.
clothing and jewelry. Actually, they had a home store as well that was very famous.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay, cool. So it was like house like stuff for the interior of your house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then so now by this point now you're like almost a native of New York City because you're like there 10 years now by this time, right? So you're
Yeah.
making it totally happen. And then how much longer to where you lived in New York to where you moved to Puerto Vallarta, and that's kind of where I'm like, what happened, like what was it that happened that, or how
Mm-hmm.
much longer were you in New York City
So
doing the
I was offered a job as the director of visual merchandising global for
oh wow.
Theory
Okay.
menswear.
Okay.
I don't know if you know that company,
I
Theory.
don't. I looked it up. I wasn't familiar with that line, but that's amazing. So that was on an international scale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
And I was there for about 8 months, and it was like the pinnacle job. Like it
Mhm.
was a director position, and
Mhm.
it was like the highest level of corporate world that I had dreamed of. And it wasn't a great fit. It wasn't a great fit with their style and my style. And I decided that I was grown up enough to have a dog.
A dog.
A dog, yeah. He's sleeping over there. But I really wanted, I also had this dream of having a Pomeranian. Okay.
Is that
Side
a
story.
fashion thing? Like the little
I don't know.
Pomeranian dog?
I don't know, but like I remember seeing a Pomeranian. This girl was walking a Pomeranian
Uh-huh.
in Soho, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's the cutest dog ever. And I wanted one, and I started researching them, and I found one And and I don't know. I just thought I'm a grown up. I can have a dog. And so I went and I got him, and his name is Jonathan. Jonathan Shapiro. And
I love that.
I brought him home and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing that has ever happened to me.
A puppy? He
yes.
was a puppy? Yeah.
Yeah, like this little cloud with eyes.
Yeah, I know. They're so cute.
I was like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing ever. But I had no time to spend with him. So
okay. Yeah, because are you working around the clock, right?
Yeah. So I was working full time in New York doing this job, and I had this dog, and I thought, well, it'll be fine. I can just bring him to doggy daycare, and I would drop him off at the doggy daycare early, and then I would go to work, and then I would come home, and I'd pick him up from. I just felt sad, I didn't have any time to spend with the little dog.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened. I was just like, I think I want to live somewhere where I can have a gaggle of pets and have a free schedule. And I had taken a trip with my friend to Tulum in Mexico. Mm-hmm. And there I don't know, I just had this kind of inspired thought that was like, move to Mexico.
That's amazing. So little Jonathan sparked it all. But so that's interesting. So you were kind of working looking. He's
looking. He knows.
He's like, yes, I did it all.
Want to say hi? Come here. I feel like you just need to see.
I do need to see him.
This is.
Oh, hi. Oh my gosh. What a looker you are. I love it. Did you make his collar too?
No, I didn't, but I do make dogs.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Oh my gosh, he's so cute. And I noticed the other little guy next to you.
That's Paul.
I love when people name their animals human names. So my cat is Norma Jean. She's a diva. She's a rag doll, and she is everything of a queen and that, but she's sleeping right now. So, oh my gosh, Jonathan is so cute. So I can see that I would want to spend time with him too. I'd be like, let's ditch the job. Like, do you think you were getting like burnt out? Or, I mean, obviously
100%,
and
I remember I was walking home from work one day, and it was cold and it was dark, and another like inspirational thought. I just remember thinking like, oh my God, am I going to do this until I'm 65?
Yeah.
And then go and enjoy my life? This is a very bad system. Yeah.
Do you think that was like a system that like you also got programmed to at a young age, or when you moved to the States that like you saw people doing, like, do you think that was something like you had learned to growing up, or was it more something when you go and live in the city, it's like so fast paced and everyone's working and it's so expensive to live there and you're just trying to like keep up to live there? Do you think, and then it's just like kind of habit by that point?
Yeah, I think that well, I haven't been to everywhere in the world, but I think that's what we're all programmed to do. I think I think most people are, that's what you do. You go to school and you get a job, and then you work until you're 65, and then you can retire, and then you can have a good time.
Right. And when I love that. So like, how old are you at this point that when you go to Tulum that you have this realization?
I was 33.
Okay. So that's phenomenal. So like you're 33 at this point. You're kind of like, you're adult. I mean, I don't know. I was a shit show in my 20s. Like I was, you know what I mean? Just, I moved out to California. I just like everything. I remember the first year I moved 10 times in my first year of moving out to California. And, I had a job, my car broke down, had to like move all in the same, like, it was just like everything. But I look back and it was like the funnest time. And, it's just, and yeah, I don't know how it always works out, but it works out. So at this point you're at Tulum, you're in Mexico, and then you go back to New York, and then
Yeah.
you're like, I'm going to move to Mexico.
Yeah. Well, when we got back on, when I got on the plane with my friend, I said, I'm moving to Mexico. And she was like, oh no, really? And I said, yeah. And I went straight back to New York and researched. I thought, well, what would be easy? I could teach English. Like I could just go to Mexico and teach English and relax and be by the beach and see how that goes. So I researched ESL certifications.
Okay.
And they had a school in Puerto Vallarta, not in Tulum. I thought I wanted to go to Tulum, but they didn't. There was no school there. So the school was in Puerto Vallarta.
Okay. And then you just picked up and like, how long did you just picked up and moved to Puerto Vallarta, like not knowing anything there?
Yeah, no, exactly. I don't even know. And I was telling someone the story and I can't remember who I was telling it. It was like, I should have been way more scared, but it was one of just the same thing as New York. It was just like a fearless, I just felt
you
so
just kind of know, right?
Connected to the idea. And I booked 2 different Airbnbs for the first 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I came, like, me and Jonathan and my suitcase. I had no idea. I didn't know anybody that lived here. I did not know one word of Spanish.
Yeah, you didn't speak the language. I think that's so courageous. And I think, like, because I feel like I said, in my 20s, I just did everything. I was like, yeah, sure. And just, I'd fall on my ass and get back up. And like you said, you just figure it out. But by 30, I feel like I kind of like had sense, or like where you're more like planted to where it's like a little bit harder to pick up and move, or like to go, like you have your roots like in New York City, right? So I think that's really amazing that you heard it and you followed that. And what do you think it was, like what that calling was that was so great inside of you, that like, because you didn't have to listen, but like what was it that was so like pulling you, and you thought you were going to go to Tulum and you deviated to go to Puerto Vallarta?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I'm definitely like a spiritual person. And
love that.
I guess like one of the greatest gifts of, I don't know, my emotional awakening, if you will, spiritual awakening, if you will, is getting like this internal GPS. This like, by doing different things like meditation and prayer and connecting to some kind of higher vibration of the universe, I have developed this like unshakable knowing about certain things. And it's fun to talk about because I trust it so much in my business, and I don't trust it in like other aspects of my life.
Oh, it's bad. You know, I've seen that happen, where that's interesting. But like, so when did you start honing in on that? Because I love that. I can resonate so much with that. And when did you start honing in on your like spiritual practice and knowing that or feeling that?
It was my early 30s. In my early 30s.
But I mean, I guess you've always had it, because it sounds like too, you've really always followed your intuition of like, I have to go to New York, and it seems like you've always really, that kind of stood out, or that's what I'm hearing, is like that always stood out, and it like has worked out. And so you built like that trust of that knowing, right? I guess. And then you just followed it. So you had that inspiration, and you just knew you had to follow it.
Yes. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. So then you're in Puerto Vallarta at this time, thinking you're going to go speak English.
I have to like give this dog some water at the same time.
Oh yeah, you're
good.
But
I can do two things at once.
No, you're good. How many dogs do you have?
I have two dogs, and I have a bunny. I also have a bunny.
Is that how?
Why wouldn't you have a bunny if your name is Bunny?
I know, because I would love to talk about that too, because I know I had asked Megan, I was like, is Bunny her like original name? And she said, no, you were Kelly Bryan, a Christian, and now you're Bunny Shapiro and Jewish.
Yeah.
Like that to me. I mean, that's like a whole nother story in itself.
This conversation took a turn. If you didn't think the story was crazy enough.
I'm like, I got the dirt on you. So when did you turn to Bunny Shapiro?
So I grew up where I grew up. Well, you asked me when did I think I legally changed my name 8 years ago. No.
Okay.
7 years ago. 7 or 8.
Okay. And so you're living in Puerto Vallarta by that time, correct?
No, I was still in New York.
Okay.
I was still in I guess it was like 8. I have to look at the date.
What was that like calling, or what was that was it an awakening, or what was
That's ridiculous.
That?
It's just it's so funny because it's my life, but when people ask me about it, I think it's so funny. Like, why? Well, I grew up in Windsor, Ontario, which there was like a huge Jewish community there. And the elementary school that I went to had tons of Jewish kids. And I, for whatever reason, I was so drawn to them, and I just thought they were so cool. And I loved their names. Like, they just have these great last names, like Goldberg and Silverstein. And I don't know, for whatever reason, that felt very glamorous to me. And I just liked the way they were, and I just liked how they acted, and I liked everything about it. And then I started learning about their traditions, and I got invited to bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs, and that was really fun. And I was always like so attracted to Jewish boys. I always wanted a Jewish boyfriend. And then there was like Jewish summer day camp, like down the street from my house. And all my friends were going to Jewish summer day camp.
And you couldn't go?
No. And I said to my parents, like, can I go to the day camp? And they're like, yeah, sure, you can go to the day camp. And so there I was at the Jewish day camp, learning more about the traditions and being exposed to it more. And I was so mad that I wasn't Jewish. Like, I
have to agree with you. I love the Jewish traditions, and I have a lot of Jewish friends now, and I love, they have like their Shabbat dinner. I love like they have like their traditions at weddings with like carrying people and chairs. And I know there's a lot more that goes into it than I know, but I just think I feel like they're actually like really deep people too, you know, because they have such a, you know, long history and like that. I agree with you. I feel the same way. But so did you full on convert over?
I full on converted.
Wow. I love that. So that happened, and then it was through that you changed your name?
Yeah. So I was on J-Date. I was on J-Date as a non-Jew.
Okay. That's a thing.
Many years.
You can do that? You can do.
Yes, okay. You can do that. And like I said, I was on the app, and I was going out with all these Jewish men because I was like, how do I get in? Like, I gotta get in. How do I get in? I just wanted to have, I just wanted to have a Jewish last name and be a fancy Jewish lady. That's what I wanted. I wanted to be a fancy New York Jew. It was just this whole thing.
Of course.
And I was dating this one man, and he had knew all of this, and he was like, you're you're very weird. Like, you're a very strange person. But if you really want to be Jewish so badly, why don't you just convert?
Wow. Light bulb.
Yeah, I was like,
I don't need
that
you.
was an option. I didn't think that was an option.
Right.
So I went down to the Union for Jewish Reform Studies in Midtown, and I said, sign me up. I want to become a Jew.
Awesome. Are you still practicing currently?
I'm not in like a traditional sense.
Okay.
No.
Mm-hmm. But I love that because also too, like you said, that you're a spiritual person. So I think like being raised Christian, I was raised Catholic, and like just broadening your sense to kind of also know what it's like, all spiritual types. I think that's very cool. So okay, so now you're going back. So now you're Bunny Shapiro, living in Puerto Vallarta, going to teach English.
Yes.
And how did that go?
Well, it was a good way to arrive here and have some kind of purpose.
And then did you need like a visa to go there as well?
It was just a traveler's visa.
Okay.
And yeah, I was just giving classes on the side kind of thing. I was my job was, I was a high school English teacher, and I didn't know any Spanish, and these kids didn't know any English.
Wait, you're a high school Spanish teacher?
English teacher.
And you don't know how to speak Spanish, and they don't know how to speak English?
No.
And you don't have like any like training of being a teacher? Or you're just following
like
their
2 month, just like the 2-month
Right.
ESL course that I did.
I love that. So that was kind of your introduction. Brilliant though. Like, so then you get to go, you're like, I'm going to go. You got 2 months of 2 different Airbnbs, and then you just start creating, a life down there.
So I had an appointment with this intuitive.
Okay.
This is very paramount.
Okay.
And her name is Sarah Wiseman. Her name is Sarah Wiseman.
Sarah Wiseman?
Yeah, Sarah Wiseman.
Okay.
And a friend of mine said that he had a session with her, and it was like super helpful. And because I had moved down, I'm like living in Mexico, teaching English. And I'm like, what am I doing here? Am I in the right place? Am I doing the right thing? And maybe I don't know what I'm doing here. And so I had this appointment scheduled to talk to her and to ask her, like, what do you think? Basically, like, what are the gods saying about this? You know? And so I said, I'm a teacher. Like, what do you think? Like, do you think this is, and she said, no. She said, you're not doing, that's not what you're going to continue doing. She said, she said, you are starting a company. You're starting a company, and it's your name, and it's online, and there's nothing like it already. And you're selling something, and I have no idea what it is, but it's really going to be successful. And she said, not like Lady Gaga successful, but like it's going to be big. And I don't know what it is, but nobody's ever done it before. And that's what you're going to do.
Wow. Were you like, holy crap, holy shit? Or were you like, yeah, right?
So mad. I was so mad. I was mad. Oh. Because I was like, I left the fashion industry. What are you talking about? I don't know. Like, this can't be. What
you thought it was, because she didn't tell you what it was going to be, but you just connected that it was fashion, or you?
I can't remember the exact details of what I think she said it's something fashion industry, but I don't know what it is. Like, she didn't have. And I was so devastated because I said, I left that life, you know, like I left.
Did you have like a sour taste at that point for like fashion in the industry at that point? Was it like a sour?
Yeah, I just I thought I had enough of it.
Right.
I thought I had enough.
Right.
And yeah. So I I left that, and I thought, no, 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 I'm not doing. To be honest, I don't know if this is helpful to anybody. I don't know why it's coming out of my mouth now, but I was struggling with a really horrible eating disorder at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. I think it is important to mention because I had been so affected by the fashion industry at that time was like not size inclusive.
Yeah.
It was very still an industry that was, and now thank goodness it's so much more size inclusive. So I
But
had made
still,
myself
yeah.
this like, I had made myself this teeny tiny itty bitty like stick figure of a human, which is
Right.
not my natural body size.
Yeah.
And so,
Oh, wow.
yeah, and it was really, really a troubling time in those years. And I had, I had become like a size zero,
Yeah.
like, which I'm like a normal, I'm like an average size 12
Right.
person. And
Right.
I was a size, I had made myself a size zero. And so I could fit into all of the teeny clothes. And I was like, but I was very sick. Like I wasn't well. And so I knew that's a big part of, I knew somehow intuitively that I needed to leave that
Mm.
environment to get well, to
Yeah.
really to be able to relax and eat normally and to not be so pressured to look a certain way and wear certain clothes. And so in that sense, yeah, there was a sour taste in my mouth that was like, I can't, that destroyed a part of me.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you. Thanks so much for sharing that because I didn't know that. So thanks
Mm-hmm.
for sharing that because you hear about that, but also like I think too probably getting caught up or I don't know what it's like, but yeah, like you're just I mean, so easy to compare and want to be that and like to fit in. So that's and so it was like a blessing really probably your trip and then following that you were just ready to
Mm-hmm.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At that time that I took the trip, I had started like the kind of a healing process of
Mhm.
eating intuitively. And I remember tasting ice cream for the first time after not having it for 2 years or something. And I just remember being like, oh my God, like,
What
what
am I
the
missing?
hell?
Yeah.
There's nothing worth not having like ice cream if I want to, or pizza if I want to, and just bare feet. And I just felt I was free. Like I just felt
Right.
free finally.
Wow. So how long did that like take for you to kind of was that on your trip to Tulum that you felt that freedom or was it more like when you like went away and started getting distance and different perspective like that freedom?
Mm-mm. It was a long recovery, but that trip to Tulum was the first time I let it, I just let
Mhm.
myself eat food. And,
Mhm.
um, and I remember feeling really like, okay, I have to do this. And Mexico was a beautiful place to heal. Like, so
Mhm.
I moved here and I, could wear long flowy dresses and
Yeah.
just let my body like go to the normal to the size that I wanted to be without feeling like this immense pressure from the industry.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, because you hear about it, but like you hear other people's stories, but then like connecting with you and hearing that one on one, it's like, oh, like, and having my own struggles with eating and food, I really get that. But I really, the freedom, I think, I feel like I've had experiences of that, but there's also like more that search of freedom. So I love that you found that. And I'm sure like your jewelry now is an expression of that.
Yeah, I mean, I finally just let myself be what I
Mm-hmm.
really like what the universe wanted me to be. I just fully open to like, all right, whatever you universe, gods,
Mm-hmm.
fairies, guides, whatever. I like pushed and forced and had my grip on how control and manage. That was like my MO, control and manage. And I just, coming here, I really just let it all just open. And in doing that, was able to create. Do you know how much brain power you can have if you're not worried about counting calories and what you're going to put in your mouth next and what exercise thing you need to do? And like, I had so much space in my head that it just flooded with like creativity.
I think that's a genius thing right there. Like, I know, because thinking about what you're going to eat next and what, like, it is. And I think that's really genius. Like what you say too, like the letting go. And I think then, other things can kind of come in when you keep letting go, because of the control we're trying to control and manage, and then can keep letting go. And so so you were teaching English and then you got connected with somebody with beads?
Yes. So after the session with the intuitive, I kind of thought, oh, well, she doesn't know, even though that she's a professional and this is what she does. It's like, oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about. And I went they have this little plaza near where I was staying. And I like literally just stumbled into a bead store, all these beads everywhere, beads. And I just remember looking down at all the little buckets of beads and was like, oh, these are so fun. Like, I'm going to make some bracelets for my friends. And I made a bunch of bracelets and they were super simple. Like looking back, I don't even know. They were so simple. And I showed some pictures to my friends at home and they said, oh, those are so cute. I want to buy a bunch for Christmas gifts.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, all right. Yeah, sure. Like I'll do that. And it just,
snowballed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. And then it's like, because I always hear too, like if you're following your passion, that's kind of when like everything, like not chasing like this thing over here of like, living in New York and you're like not healthy, but you're now like healing yourself, feeding yourself, working on your spirituality. And then like, who would have thunk it? Just, I love that though too, because you say you just have this knowing. And I like, it's like connecting in, like how do you connect, like how to share with people how to connect in with that knowing is I guess what I'm trying to like, how you know to connect into that, to like translate to help somebody else to connect in with that. Do you have any advice to that?
I think that the feeling is always like, right. I don't know if you can see it. It's always like down here
in your like
my gut
area. Yeah.
My gut area for some reason. And I can kind of feel it. I can feel it in my body. And for me, it requires a lot of being quiet and listening. And if there's a lot of chatter in my mind, or if there's a lot of like, if there's anyone I'm angry about, anyone that I'm angry at, or if there's jealousy or fear, any of those things, those block the channel. All those things block the channel. So I need to write those things down and maybe share with a friend those things, or maybe I need to forgive somebody, or maybe I need to, maybe I have bad feelings for somebody. And so once those things are cleared, I can often get it's like a tuning fork for some reason. Kind of get a sense of like, I'll have an inspiration. Like, for example, I've been thinking about London, England for a long time. And I'm like following those little breadcrumbs. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? Am I supposed to go there for work? Am I supposed to go there for fun? Am I supposed to go visit a friend? And so I also not just like acting impulsively, just like nurturing that little seed. And anyways, and the barometer for me is like, does that feel fun, joyful, and expansive? Or does it feel like crowded? And does it feel like, what's the word?
Restrictive or
like restricted or depleting, or does that feel like a bad thing, or does that feel like really fun and expansive and like, wow? And so I guess that's my
I think that's
scientific.
That's brilliant. Thanks for sharing that. So you got the jewel. Is that kind of how you, like, when you create your jewelry? Because I like, you're wearing your beautiful jewelry. I see all the colors. It's very vibrant and very, like, you have gems or like little stones and stuff on there, and then it's all like colorful beads. You have bracelets. Is there what's like, do each one, like, is one piece never the same? So are you're like doing these all yourself by hand?
So I do this, I used to, but now I have 3 girls that work for me.
Okay.
That work on production. And I
they're all
usually,
hand. So when you say 3 girls, they're hand making them?
yes.
Wow. And then are they like creating like something that you've already created to like duplicate, or is it like you just have one of a kind for every piece that you do?
Yeah, we have a basic sample, but because of the randomness of the colors, like some, like these teeny tiny beads.
Yep.
These tiny ones are really challenging to make it identical every time. So they've definitely, all of those vary. But a bigger piece like this one is easy to follow the exact colors. But most of them, I would say, are variations of the sample.
So you went to this bead store, you started making them, and then it just kind of snowballed. Everybody wanted them, and now you've create this jewelry that people come from other places to get your jewelry, right?
Yeah. So I was, thank goodness for Instagram. I had just started using Instagram I was in New York when I started using it, but really when I came to Mexico, and I had put pictures of this beaded choker that I was making. And honestly, I got an email from the editors at Cosmopolitan magazine.
Oh, wow.
And they were like, "Oh, hi, we need to ask for some jewelry samples for a beauty editorial that we're doing." And I was like, "What?" Like, I'm making this jewelry in my bedroom. Like, who do they think I am?
Right.
So I sent the jewelry, and they used it in the editorial. Like, it was in, it was in Cosmopolitan magazine. Like,
wow, that's so cool.
It was so cool. And then those editors from 17 used some things, and then they used it in another issue, and it was just one of the most exciting moments of my life.
Yeah, so it's like kind of you stepped away from that life, and then it's like kind of brought you back to there, but now you can live this healthier, more like in tune life that you have with yourself. And I love that too, because it's kind of like your inner self always knew what you needed, right? And it's cool that like you always wanted that, but you could have that and not be in that at the same time. So I love that. So now, like, are you now collaborating with, I think I remember we were talking and briefly when I first got introduced, you're like collaborating with other like celebrities now on pieces?
Yeah.
Can you talk about it, or can you not talk about it?
Yeah,
or?
no.
Okay.
Yeah, I just got to do a special collaboration with Pharrell's clothing brand called Billionaire Boys Club.
Oh, wow.
And so they're going to launch in March in Miami at their flagship store in Miami. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah,
That's
that's really cool.
amazing. So
Uh-huh.
like how do you produce like so I'm assuming you have to produce a lot of pieces and there's only four of you doing it?
Yeah, but these girls are they're
Right.
so amazing. Like they
Okay.
really, I have such a good team.
How fun. And then you just
Yeah.
do all the branding and everything cuz like from your experience of just knowing how to brand and all your experience, you just know how to market it. How cool how like you can bring everything together. How exciting.
Yeah.
Maybe are you supposed to go open a store in the UK?
Well, I work with another designer called Mira Makati,
Okay.
and she has a shop in London. She has a shop in London, and I mean, it's actually not. I just texted her before our call and said, "Would you want to do like an event at your shop in London?" And she's like, "Yeah, obviously, of course."
Okay.
So, I mean,
It's not a
it's
like
not
a
even
done
a,
deal. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I should just go there. I should just
Yeah,
go
I
there.
love that.
Yeah.
And so you've been in Puerto Vallarta now for 7 years, I think you said?
6.5.
Six
Yeah.
and a half. And do
Hmm.
you see yourself like staying there?
I think so. I have no
Yeah.
plans to be anywhere else
Yeah.
until the GPS tells me otherwise.
Have you found your Jewish like boyfriend or husband yet?
No.
No.
But you know what? It's so funny because like we were talking about earlier in the in our conversation about like the areas in my life where I'm still holding on too tight. That's probably the next area that I need to just literally
Like,
like leave it
yeah.
and go do something else and let the universe do whatever it needs to do.
I love it. It's like your eat, pray, love, like eat, pray, love
Totally.
experience. I told my husband before, I think, was it right before COVID? I was like, I need to go on my eat, pray, love experience because I just needed like something grand. And then our world shut down. And I feel like I got this like this like smack in the face of like a total awakening of like having to deal with myself for the I mean I always have been, but I think I feel like weren't or like the whole past like 3 years have been really good medicine to work if that's what you choose to work through your stuff. Everyone kind of was going through different levels of it. I really took it on, so um I totally can connect with you on that and love that spiritual aspect and try to find that meaning or letting go and just finding
Mm-hmm.
that grace and ease, and I really can connect with the freedom because that's something that I'm really trying to like I don't want to say fine because I feel like I do have a lot of freedoms and not freedoms in because people would say, oh, you're like living in the US. I have a lot of freedoms, but I mean like freedoms from my constraints that I put on myself. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, but I love this conversation so much. Thank you so much for your time. You're absolutely beautiful, and I so admire you, and you inspire me just to go on and do something that like inspires me to follow that intuition. So thank you so much for being so authentic and sharing that stuff. I know that could be a conversation in itself too, and I don't want to skip over it because I think that's really admirable that you saw that and knew you needed something different. And I hope this does impact other people that there's another way. So thank you so much for sharing and being vulnerable with me.
Thank you.
It was so nice to meet you, and I hope we talk again in the future.
That would be great.